The snap of leather tore through the evening calm. I stood frozen at the kitchen window, a mug slipping from my hand and shattering on the tile floor below. Outside, my 5-year-old daughter Mira was crouched in our front yard, clutching her, stuffed bunny, eyes wide with terror. She couldn't scream. She was born mute, but her body shook with silent cries. Towering over her was Karen, our HOA president, her face twisted in fury. In her hand she gripped a worn leather belt, which gleamed under the streetlight as it came down hard on Mira's tiny arm. "Stop flapping those weird hands!" Karen spat. "You're ruining this neighborhood!" My heart pounded in my chest as I bolted outside. "Karen, get away from her!" I shouted. Mira ran into my arms, trembling. Karen turned, smirking. "Someone's got to teach her manners." I didn't swing at her. Not yet. I'm a federal prosecutor. I've taken down drug lords and white-collar criminals. Karen didn't know who she was messing with. "You're hitting a 5-year-old," I shouted, holding Mira close. Karen twirled the belt in her hand, calm as ever. "She's disturbing the peace. Her toys clutter the yard. Her creepy hand signs scare my dog." "She's mute," I growled. "And she's a child." "You should be thanking me. I'm the only thing keeping this neighborhood from falling apart." My fists clenched, rage boiling beneath my skin. But I held it in. Karen wasn't worth losing my career over. She thrived on power, on pushing people, until they snapped. Not me. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I scooped up Mira's bunny and carried her inside. Her silent sobs soaked through my shirt. That night, she signed to me in bed. "Why does she hate me?" I signed back, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "She's afraid of what she doesn't understand. But I'm going to fix this." And I meant it. 2 years ago, my world shattered. My wife, Mira's mother, died in a car accident. Overnight, I became a single dad, responsible for a bright, sensitive child who couldn't speak, but had more to say than most adults I knew. Mira was my world. She loved painting rainbows, building chalk castles on the driveway, and communicating through sign language with hands like fluttering butterflies. Everyone in the neighborhood adored her. Everyone except Karen. Karen had always had a problem with Mira. The day we moved in, she raised an eyebrow at her silence. "Is she slow?" she asked, like it was a defect. I bit my tongue. As HOA president, Karen ran the community like a dictatorship. She fined people over flower colors, garden gnomes, wind chimes. And while I was buried in court cases prosecuting criminals, I didn't realize the criminal lived next door. I failed to protect Mira. That truth ate at me. But that night, staring at her tear-streaked face, I swore I wouldn't fail again. She wasn't just my daughter. She was the reason I got up in the morning, and I was about to go to war for her. The next morning, while Mira stayed with my sister, I walked door to door. Most neighbors opened their doors cautiously, eyes darting toward Karen's house. She had ruled for years through fear and intimidation. Some mumbled apologies, some refused to talk, but a few brave souls spoke the truth. "She fined me $300 for planting the wrong kind of rose," whispered Mrs. Patel. She called. "My grandson trash for skateboarding," said Mr. Thompson, a retired teacher. "I've seen her yelling at your daughter. I should have said something." Another woman, voice trembling, admitted, "Karen told me she'd report my son's car as abandoned if I didn't repaint our garage." She didn't just enforce the rules, she twisted them, weaponized them, and now she'd crossed a line. I knew words alone wouldn't be enough. I needed proof. Undeniable, damning evidence. I installed 2 discrete motion-activated cameras, one tucked inside a birdhouse, another by our porch. I watched Karen's movements closely. Every Evening, she patrolled like a warden, belt in hand, eyes scanning for violations. 4 days passed. Then it happened again. Mira, chalk in hand, was drawing flowers on the driveway. Karen stormed over like a storm front. "You little vandal!" she shouted. She raised the belt. Mira froze. The belt came down on her shoulder. Click. The camera captured everything. I rushed out to grab Mira before it escalated. My fists shook, but I held them at my sides. I had what I needed. Later that day, I reviewed the footage. My blood went cold. It wasn't just punishment. It was calculated. Cruelty. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched the video again, rage simmering behind my calm exterior. She wasn't just a bully anymore. She was a criminal. The next morning, I took Mira to her pediatrician. She examined the bruises, purple welts on her arms, faint older marks on her back. Her jaw clenched. "These are from repeated strikes. This isn't discipline. It's abuse." The doctor's report was precise, detailed, and damning. I filed a police report immediately, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. Karen had boasted before. Her brother was a local cop. She had connections. She felt untouchable. That was about to change. I wasn't just any father. I was a federal prosecutor, and I had receipts. I used public records databases at work to dig deeper. It didn't take long to find skeletons in Karen's closet. 12 years ago, in another state, she'd been charged with assault. But she got off on a technicality, then moved here, changed her last name slightly, and started over. She'd buried dozens of HOA complaints, some about unfair fines, others about threats. One mentioned her chasing a teenager with a stick over a lawn decoration. She wasn't just cruel, she was calculating and sloppy. I compiled it all, a dossier of every rotten piece of her history. Karen wasn't protected. She was exposed. I called an emergency HOA meeting. Karen tried to block it, but I cited bylaw 14B. Emergency meetings could be requested by any resident with 5 co-signers. The community center filled quickly. Over 60 neighbors showed up. Karen was front, and center, arms crossed, smug. "What's this nonsense?" she scoffed. I stood at the podium. "This is about you, Karen, and your abuse of power." Her eyes narrowed. "Careful." I clicked my laptop. A projector flickered on, footage played, Karen's belt raised, Mira flinching, the crack of leather, gasps echoed. Mrs. Patel covered her mouth. Mr. Thompson's fists clenched. Karen stood. "That's fake." I held up the doctor's report. "These bruises say otherwise." I passed out printed HOA complaints she'd buried. "You fined me $500 over wind chimes," someone shouted. "You threatened to sue me over my kid's swing set," another neighbor cried. Karen's smugness melted. "My brother's a cop." "Suspended. For corruption," I said. "You're alone." I turned to the crowd. "The bylaws let us vote her out. Who's with me?" Hands shot up. Unanimous. Karen screamed as 3 neighbors escorted her out. Justice was just beginning. Karen's screams echoed down the hallway as she was escorted out, still shouting about her rights. But no one flinched. Her clipboard clattered to the ground. A fitting sound. The last vestige of her fake authority collapsing in a pile of laminated threats and bogus citations. Applause erupted. Mrs. Patel wept openly. Mr. Thompson nodded, wiping his eyes. But I didn't celebrate. Not. Yet removing her from the HOA was one thing. Making her pay for what she did to Mira, that was still ahead, and I wasn't stopping until justice was more than symbolic. It would be real, measurable, permanent. Back at home, I worked late into the night. I organized the footage, medical report, neighbor testimonies, and HOA records. I submitted the abuse evidence to the local DA and a parallel report to the state HOA Oversight Board. Then I found the real bombshell. Karen had been skimming from HOA fines. Thousands of dollars rerouted to personal accounts. Receipts showed vacations, online shopping sprees, and consulting fees that didn't exist. Embezzlement, child abuse, assault. Fraud. I forwarded it all to my colleagues at the federal level. This wasn't a petty dispute anymore. This was criminal on every level. I wasn't just going to stop Karen. I was going to dismantle every lie she'd ever built. While I built my case, Mira barely spoke, not even with her hands. She refused to go outside. She woke up crying, signing frantically, "Is she coming back?" I enrolled her in therapy with Miss Carter, a specialist in trauma for nonverbal children. At first, Mira wouldn't make eye contact. Her drawings were black scribbles and storm clouds. But slowly things changed. Miss Carter used play, storytelling, and sign language. She encouraged Mira to draw her feelings. Eventually, the clouds faded. Flowers appeared again, then butterflies. One day, Mira drew our house under a bright yellow sun, her and me holding hands. She signed, "Safe." It was the first time I cried since it all began. I framed that drawing and hung it in the living room. It wasn't just art, it was proof that healing was possible. The neighborhood changed almost overnight. Mrs. Patel started leaving fresh cookies on our porch with handwritten notes. "You're stronger than you know." Mr. Thompson organized a sidewalk chalk party. Dozens of kids came. Mira hesitated, then joined. She drew a giant butterfly, smiling as she signed, "Pretty." The Garcias brought over a new sketchbook and crayons. "You're not alone," Mrs. Garcia whispered. Fines stopped. Fear vanished. Laughter returned to the street. The monster was gone. The block had never felt more like home. 10 days later, police rolled up to Karen's house with lights flashing. She screamed as they cuffed her on the lawn. Neighbors peeked out from porches, some cheering softly, others simply watching in relief. The charges were stacked high: child endangerment, assault, embezzlement, and fraud. At trial, I testified alongside neighbors. The doctor's report, the footage, all laid bare. Karen didn't say a word. Mira never had to take the stand. Her silence spoke through the evidence. The prosecutor, a colleague of mine, presented her crimes in devastating clarity. Every dollar stolen, every bruise inflicted. The judge, a no-nonsense woman, showed no mercy. Karen was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to repay the community and cover Mira's therapy in full. She glared at me as she was led. Away. But I didn't look away. Not this time. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about safety, about truth, about ensuring no one else suffered the way Mira did. Mrs. Patel was elected as the new HOA president. She was fair, kind, and transparent. The rules became reasonable. Enforcement turned into guidance. Mr. Thompson started reading to kids at the community center. The Garcias hosted weekend BBQs. And Mira? She started smiling again, playing again, signing stories with her hands. The joy returned. So did the light. 2 months later, at a neighborhood picnic, Mira ran through the yard, her bunny under one arm, her sketchbook in the other. Her drawings were displayed on a table, filled with sunshine, hearts, and butterflies. She signed to me from across the street. "I love you, Daddy." I signed back, "I love you too." Later, as we sat on the porch, she looked up at the sky and signed, "She's really gone?" "Yes," I signed. "Forever." She leaned into me, safe, peaceful. The sunset bathed the street in gold. Neighbors laughed, kids played, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt whole. Justice wasn't just a courtroom word. It lived here now, in the quiet, in the laughter, and in my daughter's smile.